Ronda Rousey is leaving the WWE, almost effective immediately, because by the end of the summer, she will be gone, with Summerslam positioned to be her final match against Shayna Baszler, as she looks to put out Shayna Baszler as she goes out the door. Now, there's a lot to talk about here, particularly the limitations that Ronda Rousey's contract put on Triple H, the changes that were made to the booking and the creative purely to accommodate her and by her request, and how she can walk away now even though her contract ostensibly does run for a longer period. This really does echo her initial run in the company, which the WWE announced would be a 3-year contract and ended up only lasting 12 months. So let's jump straight into it. I'm Tom Colohue, be sure to subscribe. Ronda Rousey's initial contract in 2018 was announced to be 3-year. However, it did contain a number of opt-out clauses which limited the amount of time she would be required to work in the WWE. Essentially, it gave her carte blanche to determine, I'm done now, forget the next 2 years, and just walk away. In her initial run, she worked with a number of people: Kurt Angle, Triple H, and Stephanie McMahon, Nia Jax, Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, Nikki Bella, and Becky Lynch, and of course Sasha Banks. She also worked briefly with Bayley, Dana Brooke, but those are on Raw and very little talked about. She worked with a number of people high up the card, with the intention being to bring the level of women's competition to a higher degree, whereby more eyes would be on the women who were already there. That was the plan. However, in execution, a lot of people genuinely do think she buried the entire women's division, and I struggle to argue with that, unfortunately. The only person to literally stand a chance was Becky Lynch. That said, at least the Becky versus Ronda feud was very entertaining. Cut forward to January last year, the Royal Rumble, when Ronda Rousey returned, and when she did so, there were a number of clauses in her contract that guaranteed her arrival. First and chief amongst them were the match at WrestleMania. Secondly, a championship run. Third, a tag team run with Shayna Baszler. And fourth, a final match against Shayna Baszler. I don't necessarily know if Shayna Baszler was asking for this influence from Ronda Rousey and this support, but Ronda Rousey certainly was willing to give it. And what I will say is that before this Ronda Rousey run, Shayna Baszler really hadn't been getting the rub of the green, and in fact had some big opportunities cancelled previously, most notably in 2020 when Charlotte Flair won the Royal Rumble to take on Rhea Ripley, even though Shayna Baszler was one of the favourites to do so and was considered to be the favourite in the creative room for a long time previous. Speaking of Charlotte Flair, we open essentially on Ronda Rousey's second run with the build into WrestleMania. The initial plan for last year's WrestleMania, was Charlotte Flair defending the SmackDown Women's Championship not against Ronda Rousey, but against Sasha Banks. And from sources indicating, Sasha Banks was essentially told, that's not going to happen now, what do you want to do instead? This is how we got Sasha Banks and Naomi, firstly as a tag team, and then as women's tag team champions, but it also absolutely led to the moment which saw Sasha Banks and Naomi walk away from the company and not return. Naomi, of course, now Trinity in Impact, and Sasha Banks now Mercedes Money, primarily has been wrestling in and around Stardom, New Japan area, and is certainly an option for AEW going forwards. A meeting has already taken place about that. But this immediately soured fans to Ronda Rousey because that match did not take place. Now, Charlotte Flair would eventually lose the championship to Ronda Rousey at second time of asking, and a very different run for Ronda Rousey would begin. Charlotte Flair took almost a year off from there, returning only briefly in order to regain the championship again a long time later, but let's get to that. The limitations in Ronda Rousey's contract essentially gave her an element of creative control which prohibited Triple H, particularly as chief content officer when he came into power, from making certain creative decisions. Ronda Rousey had carte blanche to say, I don't want to do that, as best I can tell. Now, when it comes to Ronda Rousey, she returned wanting to work with people lower down the card this time. That's why she's worked with and had pretty good matches with people like Raquel Rodriguez. Sorry, the RR confused me. She's also worked with Shotzi and a number of times with Liv Morgan. The reason we also saw Liv Morgan defend the championship against Shayna Baszler was Ronda Rousey pushing for that as part of that. Now, Liv Morgan certainly did not get the rub of the green, even though she has pinned Ronda Rousey 3 times. She did have a very brief and kind of unmemorable championship run, which has not particularly elevated her to the top level. but hopefully Liv Morgan gets another opportunity at that shortly. Ronda Rousey, however, upon reclaiming her championship, would then move into a further feud again with Raquel Rodriguez. The plan for WrestleMania was reportedly Rhea Ripley versus Ronda Rousey. This is not what happened. Ronda Rousey essentially saying, I want to make a change. The terms of my contract make it so that I can. And then Charlotte Flair was brought back to attack and claim the championship from Ronda Rousey. Thus, she only actually loses matches in a case of either betrayal or some sort of attack from behind. That's the situation that we have for this particular run of Ronda Rousey. This, again, really changed creative plans going into WrestleMania, because now Ronda Rousey was available, they needed to put her somewhere else. And thus, she was the one this year being dropped out of the championship match and moved into the tag team, much as she had done to Sasha Banks the year before. A little bit of parallels there. Now, leading up to WrestleMania, there are reports that Ronda Rousey already wanted out, but because of the injury she picked up, they had to extend the feud a little bit longer and extend her run a little bit longer. Only recently have she and Shayna Baszler actually fully recovered, and Ronda Rousey was determined to have that match with Shayna Baszler before she went. But from what I can tell, she had one foot out the door in around November, December time. This is not unusual for Ronda Rousey. Her first run, as I say, was supposed to be for 3 years. But from what I can tell, when she's in the WWE, Ronda Rousey would kind of rather be doing other things. But when she's not in the WWE, she'd kind of rather be in the WWE. Kind of awkward for everyone involved. Ronda Rousey's plan from here is to lose the match to Shayna Baszler at SummerSlam and then walk away. The actual feud with Shayna Baszler has come out of nowhere because Ronda Rousey informed the WWE she would be leaving kind of out of nowhere as well. I've spoken to a number of people backstage who have said this. The actual contract does allow her to opt out, and she's not the only person to have that sort of contract. Rey Mysterio for a long time had an opt-out contract that would allow him to basically, as long as he gives enough notice, call his contract done and walk away from there. Ronda Rousey has that power and has exercised it. Going forwards, this could be very beneficial for Shayna Baszler, apart from one thing. The plans for the Women's Championships, both of them, are already set in motion. Asuka has a date with Io Sky coming, and at SummerSlam has Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair to contend with. Rhea Ripley a little less, but her date is with Becky Lynch further down the line, and I certainly wouldn't turn my nose up at a WrestleMania featuring Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch, and also Asuka versus Io Sky. How then does Shayna Baszler fit into this? The answer is, she kind of doesn't. I certainly think we could be seeing Rhea versus Shayna at some point soon. Shayna is confirmed on Monday Night Raw, but Shayna seems to be the heel in this feud. Again, involvement from Ronda Rousey. The question, of course, is, will you miss Ronda Rousey from the WWE? I do like her matches. I do feel they are unique and different. They've improved as her run has gone on. I much prefer to her first run with the impact of it, but that may just be chemistry with individual, very talented performers compared to wrestling a little further down the card. Ronda Rousey, though, doesn't really care. She will be moving on and leaving behind a much weaker legacy, I feel, in the second run than the first. The SmackDown Women's Championship really is only just starting to recover, even though the championship itself has been retired. Let me know what you think about this with Ronda Rousey and the details that I've shared there, and check out my other videos. There'll be plenty more coming about Drew McIntyre and the SummerSlam card in the days to come, so please check those out. I've been Tom Colohue, you have been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.